The Process Podcast, breaking down the daily habits, processes, and tools of high achievers. Now, here's your host, Brad Wilson.
Hey there, boys and girls. This is the host of the Process Podcast, Brad Wilson. As always, if you haven't yet taken a moment to subscribe, go ahead and click that little button that ensures you never miss any of the amazing value and wisdoms that my guests share on the show. Today on the show, I have with me Andrew Wittman. Andrew is a certifiable badass. He was a special agent in charge of Nancy Pelosi's security detail. He was Joe Lieberman's head advance agent and has personally protected Hilary Clinton, Benjamin Netanyahu, Sir Elton John, and many others. He's the founder of GetWarriorTough.com and the author of Ground Zero Leadership, CEO of You, and the 7 Secrets of Resilience for Parents, Navigating the Stress of Parenthood, which, by the way, is stressful. Andrew's pretty much the prototypical guest for the process, as there are tangible reasons behind every single action he takes in his life, whether it's coaching his clients, writing his next book, or raising his kids. He just doesn't have a lot of wasted motions. In this episode, you'll learn how your language determines your life trajectory, how to burn your boats and truly commit to your dreams, how you can use social drivers to remove distractions, and much more. So without any further ado, here's my conversation with Andrew Wittman. Andrew, good morning, my friend. How are we doing?
Good. Thanks for having me, brother.
My pleasure, man. I've been looking forward to it for about a month now.
I know. It's so awesome. I mean, it took us a month to get our stuff together, but I'm really excited to be with you this morning, bro.
Yes, sir. Since you're the mental strength guy, I want to start out this talk. Can you tell me about a time in your life before you would have considered yourself mentally strong?
Yeah, and I would go back to my high school years. You know, I was a fat kid in high school and I got bullied, and my mom and dad were missionaries. And so I was not allowed to fight back. And that's really what started me on this quest of mental toughness. I didn't want to live my life in fear and anxiety. I didn't want to not have control of, my body and my eating habits and laziness and all of those things. So that's when I graduated high school, came back to the States, and enlisted in the Marine Corps.
And why do you think you weren't mentally strong in high school? What was holding you back?
Yeah, I just didn't have the mindset. It was kind of, be nice, turn the other cheek, all that kind of just, and then almost like that feather on Forrest Gump, you're just, a feather blowing in the wind. You don't really have control of your life. It's just whatever, que sera, sera, whatever happens, happens, or it happens for a reason is another one I hear a lot. Everything happens for a reason. I'm like, yeah, because you made a dumb decision somewhere. That's why it happened. But that's kind of the mindset growing up, that it's kind of like I call it a no-fault belief system, right? So you kind of don't believe that anything that bad happens to you is your fault, and anything that good that happens to somebody else, they got lucky.
How do you go about dispelling that belief system?
Well, you got to take an honest assessment, and first off is realize that that's your belief system. A lot of people don't even realize that programming has seeped in from teachers and, neighbors and little league coaches and parents and Sunday school teachers or ministers, and you don't even realize that self-limiting belief. So the first step is to just take what I call an honest assessment, a hard look in the mirror, and to identify what your self-limiting beliefs are. And I really do that best by how I talk. So self-talk will be an indicator of what you actually believe.
Let's kind of construct this for somebody out there that maybe doesn't know. What questions, self-reflecting questions, can people ask themselves to realize that they are limiting themselves?
Well, the first thing is I'll just start jotting down. I even record what I say. If I'm saying stuff like, I can't, I don't know, that's impossible. I get sick this time of year every year. I can never seem to get ahead. I'm always waiting for the other shoe to drop. I can't seem to get organized. Or here's another one. I'm always so busy. I never have enough time. These are all indicators that you're holding yourself back. Because especially the time question. Let's just hone in on that one, Brett. Right? People tell me they don't have enough time. Well, every human being on the planet has the exact same amount of time every day, 24 hours. Right? So it's the great equalizer. You could have more money or less money, but everybody on the planet has 24 hours every day. Now, how you spend it, how you use it, how you invest it, or how you waste it will dictate your results. So the first thing, if I hear you saying I'm so busy or I don't have time, that's a red flag for me that you have a self-limiting belief.
I think you're basically describing the idea behind my podcast when I initially decided to launch it. You know, the question that I was asking was, we all have 24 hours. Why do some people do like such incredible things and then other people just struggle all the time? And specifically, what actions are those people taking? A lot of it's rooted in perception and mindset and having a gritty attitude, overcoming obstacles. And like you said, not limiting yourself. That's pretty much the common denominator that I found for, you know, all of these people. So we live in this world where knowledge is plentiful. And one of my favorite quotes is by Derek Sivers. And he said that if more knowledge was the answer, we'd all be billionaires with 8-pack abs, right?
Right. A 9-pack. I get an extra one in there. Like Lego right. Batman.
Maybe 10-pack. Why stop at 9? You know,
right.
Just if you're going to go all out. Right?
Let's do it. I'm with you, man.
So what I want to ask is, you know, who's one of your favorite historically mentally strong people before we got this, you know, giant dump of knowledge on top of us? There are people that are naturally strong, right? And who's one of your favorite of those types of people?
Yeah, you say historically, but I don't know them. So like my leadership mentor, my mental toughness mentor is a guy named Lieutenant Colonel John Fulchetti. He was my company commander in Panama and also in Desert Storm. He's retired now. And he just lived it every day. So, and that's what I want to do is, you know, historically, guys, that might be great, but here's what I found out, you know, and I've worked, if you know my bio, right, I was the agent in charge of Nancy Pelosi's detail. I was Joe Lieberman's lead advance, personally protected a lot of people. And what I learned from that is that what you see on the news about somebody is not necessarily who they are. What you read about them is that, so if you don't know them, it's going to be hard for you to pick a historical, you know, you pick a historic guy and all you know is whoever wrote that history, their perspective. And that's what you said, perspective, right? So I like to find somebody, you know, that's what I did. I found this guy, he just took me under his wing as, you know, just a young Marine and started to mold me and shape me. Now, listen, it wasn't always fun or easy, but he modeled that behavior so that I could follow him in what he did. And that's what I think really how it's effective. Just looking at, you know, I'll just be straight up with you, man. Just reading a blog or reading my book. Knowledge, like you said, is fantastic, but knowing and doing are two different things. So I try to break down in the book step-by-step things that you could do to get to where we're going, not just so it's not really about me. There's stories in the book. I interviewed a bunch of parents, you know, just to give you some real life examples, but looking at another person, not necessarily. What I want to look at is the formula that works, the step-by-step science-based research-backed principles. 1, 2, 3, you do this and you get this result. For me, that's what it was about. What are the 3 things I have to do in order to, you know, 1 + 2 + 3 = 6.
So what are they? What are, like somebody listening today that says, I need more resilience in my life. I need to be grittier. What's the, after awareness, what's the next step they can take? Actionable.
Right. The very first thing that I teach everybody in corporate, whether you're a coaching client, a professional athlete, all these high performers that I coach, first thing I'm going to ask you to do is suspend your disbelief for just 2 minutes. Could you do it? Is what I ask them. Could you suspend your, and then I'm like, what? I'm like, well, have you ever watched a movie that you liked? If you have, any time in your life you watched a movie and you enjoyed it, congratulations, you suspended your disbelief for an hour and a half because you know that's not real, right? Even the ones based on a true story or Hollywooded up. So the first thing is when you hear that voice of resistance on the inside of you that says, that's impossible, I can't do it, I don't have enough time, I'm not good enough, or all the obstacles of why we can't do something, just stop for a second, say, yeah, I get it, we can't, yes, it is impossible, but if it were possible, how would I do it? And if you could just for 2 minutes entertain that question, how would I do it? What happens is it switches your brain on to go find ways that you could do something that 2 seconds ago, when you said is impossible, your brain stops looking for an answer.
So you create those paths, and then over time, if this were possible, what would it look like?
Right. I'm not going to argue that it's possible or not possible. That's a waste of time arguing.
Sure.
So just play along with me. And this is what I'll say, just play along with me. If it were possible, how do you think we could do it? I need $1,000. Okay, how do you think we could do it?
Right.
And then they'd be like, well, I could sell my, old speaker system, or I could go, rake up, leaves for the neighbor, and then all of a sudden you have 5 ideas that 2 seconds ago was completely impossible on how to raise $1,000.
I think where the confusion sets in is people may think some things are impossible when the reality is they're really, really hard. Like there's a lot of pain and suffering that goes into all the things, like with building a brand, building a podcast, writing a book, right?
Yeah.
Like
it's work.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not, you don't just roll out of bed and, write down the first thing that comes to mind and then boom, publish it and it's out there.
Yes. It took me 2 years to do the research and write out the manuscript of this book. 2 years every day. I'm in, and here's the discipline, right? You get up and here's my writing block, from 9 to 11 in the morning. Right. So, and then because I still have to run my business, I still have to do everything else. But 9 to 11, I'm scheduling. This is my writing time.
Right.
And so, and I don't care if hey, look, I would feel better if during 9 to 11, I was watching like reruns of Friends because it really makes me laugh. No, this is the worry. So this is what people do. They get distracted with stuff. Right. So, it's just so hard and there's people, it's so hard to write a book. Well, first off, it's not. Why would you say that? Like, okay, so it's hard. Let's not argue about that. It's hard. But if it weren't hard, how would you do it? See, that's the first question, right? So anytime I'm just going to flip whatever I'm saying that self-limits me and then just suspend that disbelief for just a second. Oh, I couldn't do it. Okay, just suspend that for just a second. If you could, how do you think you would?
And for your clients and everything, that's great, right? Because they have somebody holding them accountable. But well, unfortunately for you, not everybody that listens to this show is going to be a client, right? How do we add that accountability to say, the most important people in our lives, our spouses, our friends, whenever we hear them have self-limiting beliefs, how do we call them out on it
just ask that same question. Way? That's what I'm going to do the same thing. Like they'll say, I don't have enough time. No, I get that, man. It's hard but if you did have more time, or if you did find a way to make more time, how do you think you would do it? See, I'm not arguing with you about you don't have time.
And you're validating.
I'm so busy. No, I get it, man. We're all busy. But if you think you could squeeze this in, how do you think you would? Just fantasy. Just play along with me if you think, right? So, because this is what we know. Cognitive neuroscience tells us that the human brain has to answer a question. It's the original search engine. Has to answer a question. Doesn't have to come out of your mouth, but your brain will go to work and search for an answer. Like right now, don't answer this question. Whatever I say next, do not recall this information. What city are you in? Stop it. What's 2 + 2? Stop recalling that information, right? So I don't even have to tell anybody anything. All I have to do is ask them a question to point them in the right direction.
I love the way that you use your language there too. I did an interview with Michael Sorensen and he wrote a book on validation. You validate how the other person is feeling first.
Absolutely.
Before offering them feedback. Because if you just straight offer them feedback, they build a wall and it's not going to go through. It's not going to give you the results that, the best results for them, honestly, in their personal growth.
Right. So, and the science behind that is that, and it's 100% spot on. The science behind that is the number one fear of all humans and social animals, not just humans, is rejection. And the brain registers rejection the same way it registers physical pain. So what I want to do is so the opposite is their number one need is acceptance or validation. So if I fulfill their number one need first, they're not going to fear pain. So if they even get an inkling that they're about to be rejected, they're going to be like someone touching a hot stove. What do we do if we're going to, hot stove, we're going to immediately draw back. So that's what happens when you don't validate something. That's why we don't argue with them. Hey man, I get it. You're busy. I'm with you. We're busy. Now, but for fantasy's sake, if you could fit this into your day, how do you think you would do it? Right. So they're not feeling any rejection at that point. So I've kind of done an end run around their defenses, if you will, and help them get out of their own way. Again, another self-limiting belief.
And it's just communication skills.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it boils down to. And I have to say that I hate myself for my lack of communication skills as I learn every day.
That's just awful self-talk, man.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Doing the show on mental toughness, saying that I hate myself. No, I wish that I would have learned more about communication and how to validate what other people said, because I would have been able to make a much greater impact. I would have been able to do the things that I wanted to do, right? The intention is to help.
Yeah.
But if you do it in a clumsy way, it just automatically gets shut down, no matter what your intention is. Your intention is irrelevant.
Absolutely.
So you talk a lot about cognitive biases in your book. So could you define that for me and explain the role that these cognitive biases take in our perception, our perspective in life?
Yeah. So first of all, let's to answer that question, I'll ask this question: are facts and truth the same thing?
No.
Right. So if you ever watched a courtroom drama, like Law and Order or Matlock or whatever, what gets entered into evidence are facts, but the witnesses swear to tell the truth. Now, this is how the human machine works, is that we operate in truths. Truths are our perception. So here's an example. I was just doing a keynote in Chicago like 2 weeks ago. I'm from South Carolina, where it was like 90 degrees here. I got to Chicago, stepped off the plane, it's 59. 59 degrees Fahrenheit is the fact, but my truth was that I was cold. If I had just come from Alaska, where it was minus 20, and I stepped off the plane in Chicago, my truth would be, man, this is a sweat pit here in Chicago. I don't know how these people live here, right? So it's so hot. So that's how the human machine works. We take facts and then we perceive them in a certain way matched up with our belief system. However, our opinion is a softer word, how we've been programmed to see things. And this is where cognitive biases come in. That's my truth. It's my opinion. It's my attitude and viewpoint on something. And that has all been programmed. When we come out of the birth canal, we are a clean slate. So each one of these biases is programmed, how we view something. So, and I call it they call it heuristics, but I call it mental rules of thumb. So, and we all need them to survive. You're making judgments and predictions even on the highway while you're driving that somebody's going to act in a certain way. You make an assumption so that you could drive. You assume people are going to stop at the red light and that you're going to go at the green light, that it's safe. You make that assumption. That's a cognitive bias, right? That's why if people have gotten plowed, right, T-boned at an intersection because they assumed that everyone stops at a red light instead of checking, right, before they proceeded through the intersection. And that's the baseline of a cognitive bias, where you make an assumption based on, you think, well, most of the time, and listen, that's just how we have been programmed and how we operate so we can live in real life, real time. However, if you're not aware of it, you may get T-boned at the red light.
And most of the time, the cognitive bias are programmed by the original social proof, the parents that raised us, our family. That's why it seems surprising when a Major League Baseball player has kids. Ken Griffey has a son. That son grows up to become, one of the best Major League Baseball players to ever play. And you think, wow, that's lucky, right? Like that's good genes. But really, it's social proof. Ken Griffey growing up and modeling the behavior of his father that leads him to the major leagues. And unfortunately, some people have a worse situation than Ken Griffey to model their behavior after. And these behaviors can follow them throughout your life and affect every single thing that you do. So that's why it's very important to question all of these truths that you may believe 100%, but they could be 100% wrong. And they could be holding you back from being the person that, you want to be.
Right. And that's one of the questions we ask. Is this helping me or hurting me? Is this belief, this attitude, this opinion, does this help me or hurt me? And more importantly, your kids. That's why I wrote the book for parents, because a lot of it, and listen, this programming, it's multi-generational. It's not just your kids. Your kids are going to pass down to their kids what was passed down to them, unless they're very intentional about changing that program. Yeah,
it's a cycle. It just goes on and on and on. That's why, you see a mom who's 60 years old, who's very anxious and worried, and she lets things build up. And then you see the daughter who's younger than her, same behavior, right? It's like, it's a mirror image of one another.
Right.
And then she has a daughter, and guess what? Same behavior.
Exactly.
Another mirror image. So let's get into the book. The 7 Secrets of Resilience for Parents. When you were deciding to write a book, why parents specifically?
Yeah, this is my 4th book. But the one that I did for this, for Get Warrior Tough, for the Mental Toughness Training Center, our coaching curriculum is called Ground Zero Leadership CEO of You. And so we would use that as our coaching manual and our coaching curriculum. And I would go into corporate and teach this stuff for leaders in the office. And without fail, anyone who had kids would come back to me and go, how can I use this in my house? Like, this is going to help me more at home. Do you have something for me, as a family, for my family unit? How do I get this to my kids? And I was like, well, okay, so it was really market driven. I got people asking me, how can I take these principles and use them at home? So we basically took the research that we do for leadership and performance skills. And I waited really until my kids were old enough that I had enough success. So my oldest two are adults. They're away at college now, and my youngest is a freshman in high school. And I wanted to make sure that, what I'm saying actually worked, right? There's a lot of, this isn't a parenting book per se, but it's a book for parents. But listen, I've been in the trenches, right? So, and I've had success. So that's why I waited this long.
How do you define success as a parent relating to your kids?
My definite, and listen, success is one of those truths. It's whatever you define it to be. But for me as a parent, I look at my kids now. First off, they're teenagers. Well, one's 21, one's 18, and one's 14. As teenagers, they all like to be around me and their mom, and they like to be around each other. For me, that was a huge success that we all loved to be, not just loved each other, but we liked each other and we liked to be around each other. And that they listened to what my guidance was, but they made their own decisions and then dealt with the consequences. Now that the oldest two are standing on their own, it gives me such great pleasure to see them walk through this mental toughness process, the critical thinking process, and be successful at it in hitting their own targets, dealing with their own, all their own stressors in life. Like, that's huge success for me that I've set them up so that they can handle whatever life throws at them.
Functional, autonomous human beings that love their parents and like their parents.
And they like each other. They're good people. They actually like people. They'll try to help people. They're not vindictive. Even if somebody, and this is how we raise them. Even if somebody doesn't like you, and if somebody even is going after you, man, bless their hearts. They need your help, right? There's something going on there. Nobody, I firmly believe this. There's no bad people. It's just we find ourselves in bad times and then we don't know how to get out of it.
And for the most part, how people act outwardly is a reflection of how they feel on the inside. So,
yes, about themselves, really. That's really what it is, how they feel about themselves. So like a bully and a backstabber, they haven't accepted themselves, and what they're trying to do is push other people down to make themselves feel better. When I see that, I don't be like, oh, mad about the bully or the backstabber. I think, bless their heart, they have self-esteem issues. They literally need help in accepting themselves.
We have process problems and we punish people for the process problems, but we don't get to the underlying reasons, the root of why the behavior is taking place in the first place, which is the only thing that matters, right? Nothing else really matters. That's how you solve all the issues in the world. Quite frankly.
Everything else is just putting Band-Aids on bullet holes. Treating symptoms is not an answer. And it's and this is one of the things I say in the book, right? Don't confuse your kids' behavior, being disappointed in their kids' behavior, with being disappointed in them. I've never told my kids I was disappointed in you. I may have told them behavior was not acceptable, but that had nothing to do with them as a person, right? So I separate out behavior from the person. And that's really in every relationship that you have. Employee, employer, the kids on the playground, teammates, neighbors. Separate out their behavior from who they are.
And again, it's more of a language issue, right? I think that if, as a parent, if I were to say, I'm disappointed in you, talking to my daughter, I would not mean that. What I mean is the behavior, right? So being very careful and cognizant, aware of the language that you're using, especially to impressionable children who, this is how these truths get created. They hold them inside themselves forever. They create an agreement that is extremely, excruciatingly hard to break much later in life. So better to create good agreements now. What's something related to personal growth, mental strength that people waste a lot of time on that doesn't give them many results? Well,
I tell you, if you're not, here's the thing. If you're not 100% committed, if you don't burn your boats, right? So in 1500s, there was a guy named Hernan Cortez, right? That brought 600 Spaniards across to get that Aztec gold in Mexico. And he was up against 30,000 warriors who were fighting for their families and their homes. And I've got 600 guys that are trying to get gold. Cortez realized that the difference between 30,000 and 600 was not the problem. The problem was the internal driver and who was committed. So you're fighting for money and they're fighting for their wife and kids in their home. They're going to win that fight every time. So what he did is he threw a beach party, a clam bake, and then went and burnt the boat. So there was no way home. Right. So now we're committed. Now both sides are fighting one's fighting to get back to their wife and kids, and the other one's fighting. Right. So it's commission. I'm committed. I'm 100% in. There's only one way out of this thing, and that's to win. And that's the biggest key to anybody that does any kind of self-help. We see it with why diets don't work. We see it by people yo-yo on all kind of stuff. It's because they're not 100%. They don't burn the boats and say, you know what? I'm going to do this and I'm going to get better come hell or high water, no matter what how much work it costs me. There's no plan B. And I'll say this, if you have a plan B is really plan A. It's just a matter of time, because when your plan A gets hard, you will hit the exit and plan B becomes the new plan A.
Let's get it out there then. How do we burn the boats? If we have a plan B and we're working on a plan A right now, let's say, ask ourselves, is plan B really what I want to be valuing? And then how do we functionally go about burning the boats? So let's use the example of a job, a career. Something that you're working on, but you're working towards something else. How do we go about burning the boats to make that transition in life?
Yeah. And we run across this where somebody who's making like huge 6-figure salary, high 6 figures, maybe even 7, but hate their job. And they say, well, I got the golden handcuffs. Well, I ask them, what do you really want to be doing? Well, I want to start a school. Okay. What's keeping you from that? Well, the paycheck, I couldn't have the same lifestyle that I have right now. So to burn the boats is you really want to achieve your dream of having a school. You're going to have to make that mental adjustment and say, you know what, maybe, getting box tickets to the NFL after party of the playoff game might have to get burnt, right, in order for me to reach my dream. But so you don't really have the dream of starting a school. It's just a nice idea. And so you won't burn the boats. If someone who says, you know what, I'm going to leave this and take all my skills and all my energy, all my, financial resources, and I'm going to go do this dream. And that's it. This is the one thing I'm focused on. No matter how difficult it may seem, I'm going to push through it and achieve this. That's burning the boats, right? So you may have to give up that salary. Not may, you will. If you're looking for, I'll try to start, right? That's what I call trying is lying. If you're using the word try, you're lying. It's not real. Right. So I'll try to start a school. I'll try to hit my dream. It's kind of like you and me. If we were saying, hey, you want to go to the gym tomorrow at 6 a.m. And I said, I'll try to be there. Am I going?
You're not going.
No. So that's another. So practically, if you're just going to try something, you're going to attempt something, you're lying to yourself and everybody else. That's really not going to happen. If you say, I'm going to work at this is it. So I get offers all the time, Brett. People want me to be an affiliate marketer for this. And will you be, can we be a referral partner for that? Can we, no, I'm focused on what I do, right? I'm focused on what I do, and what I do is the only thing that I do, right? And I can't be distracted with all these other little things. That's burning the boats. Is I'm 100% focused on this thing of building the Get Warrior Tough, the Mental Toughness Training Center, and helping as many people enjoy the benefits of resilience. Not selling real estate, not trying to, do financial, an app that tells you what your budgeting is and I don't do any of those things. This is all I do. And I'm not looking for any other clients other than the kind that I can help doing this. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I do want to challenge though, because in some cases, what if that is a little simplistic? What if you have a family, right, that you're taking care of and you're the primary breadwinner, and burning the boats means making things very uncomfortable for, say, your spouse, right?
And my kids. I'm that guy. Kids. Yeah, right. I'm that guy. Well, would you, let me ask you this question, right? Here's how you know if you're willing to burn the boats or not. Would you bet on yourself?
So just that internal question. Would you bet your
own money on you? So listen, there's a tough transition. Sometimes it makes people uncomfortable, right? And so I ask this question, or I'll say this, make this statement: don't bet against me. Don't bet against me. Right. So, and that's what Hernan Cortez is. So don't bet against me or my guys. Don't bet against us. Right. So, and if you're trying to find an exit or give yourself wiggle room or a back door, what you're telling me is that you wouldn't bet for yourself. You're betting against yourself.
I love
and
that.
listen, if you're that, then that's cool. But then don't think that somebody got lucky because they were successful. What those people did was bet on themselves and give themselves no way out.
And at the end of the day, I think it's okay to actually ask yourself these questions and realize that a pipe dream is just a pipe dream. And then you move on. Then you don't waste mental energy and
right. 100%.
dreaming of
100%.
one day. You focus more on the present, the here and the now, or you start searching for something else where you do want to fully invest yourself and burn all the boats.
Right. And I would even say this to somebody who's making, and this is what I tell some of those executives. Instead of changing, who want to, like, I'm thinking of the one guy who wanted to start a school. All right. So listen, how can we get you to where this is, or you doing what you do, you love that? How can we get you to where you love instead of saying, I hate what I do? Because now it's back to self-talk. And a hate and love are truths. It's a perception, just like it's cold or it's hot. So once I ascertain that this is, we're not, hey, listen, man, I'm not burning the boats. I'm not leaving. Now, can I make this the plan A and burn the boats from everything else so that you could rocket to the top of whatever field you're in? And how do I get you to where you love what you're doing instead of looking for the exit? That's the next level, right? Can I get you to, like, say, a 1 to 7? 1 means I hate what I do. 7 means I love it. How can I get you to a 6 or a 7 in what you're doing right now? And so then I take those cognitive biases and I use them for our advantage instead of our detriment. All I have to do is tweak a few perceptions and suddenly you love what you do. This is the greatest thing ever. Instead of telling me all the stuff that you don't like about it, all I have to do is get you to start telling me all the great stuff about it and change your cognitive bias.
Which is a much easier transition.
It is much easier. That's why I like to walk. So what I said earlier, right, this kind of sounds kind of harsh, but that we have to weed that out so that this pipe dream is really nothing more than a fantasy. Listen, I'll never play NFL football. I need to take that one off the table. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to wait, right? It's kind of like those people. Do you remember that show? What was it? Like American Idol with Simon Cowell?
Yeah.
And then he would be like the only guy that would tell you, why are you even here? Well, my mom said I could sing good. He's like, you can't sing. Why are you, he's the only one really being real with these people. Go find something else to do that you could be great at. Because this ain't it.
It's honestly to their benefit over the long term.
Yes.
To give people, even though, it's harsh, it's very, cutting, rough feedback to receive.
Yes.
Especially on national TV.
Yeah, brutal.
It's brutal just on a 1-to-1 basis with nobody else ever hearing it. But,
right.
I think it's to our benefit to get this feedback, because then maybe we switch. Either we take it off the table, because we have absolutely no chance objectively, or B, we invest into improving ourselves, invest in ourselves to the point to where we would bet on ourselves. And for me, I was 19 years old when I decided to be a professional poker player, right? Would I have bet on myself back then? 100%. I learned everything I possibly could. I was obsessed with being the best that I could do. People laughed at me. It meant nothing. I did not care because I felt like I knew something that they didn't know. And that was that I could be successful and that nothing was going to prevent me from doing that.
And that's where you need to, and that's it. That's the exact thing right there. You have to be obsessed. You said the thing, obsessed. You have to know, and you're betting on yourself, right? If you're not there, then don't do it. That's what I would say. If you're not obsessed and you wouldn't bet on yourself and you're kind of like, well, I got to be careful, then don't do it. Because you say this is plan A, but that's what I said. That's really not plan A. If these things, these self-limiting beliefs, what you just told me is you had there was no belief that limited yourself. Other people might not have believed in you, but you believed in you.
Right.
Right. And if you're not there, then don't do it. You're running off a cliff, especially if you have a wife and kids or a husband and kids. Yeah.
At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter if anybody else believes in you or not. Really, it's all about you.
Yes.
Except for like a professional football career or becoming a professional singer. Then other people's opinions start mattering.
It does matter. Yeah.
So what's some common advice that you hear people giving that you just completely disagree with?
Well, people be like, this one, especially with like high school seniors or college kids. I'll ask them, what do they want to do? What's their target? What do they want their life to look like? What are you going for? And they'll be like, well, I don't know. And the parents will be like, yeah, I didn't either at their age. And I turned out okay. It's okay. But then like the last 10 minutes, they've been complaining about their life, their job, their spouse, the economy. So I'm like, don't tell your kids that that's okay. I turned out okay after you've just been complaining about everything. And really, do you really want your kids to just turn out okay, just like you, and be miserable just like you? So that whole, I turned out okay thing, that's advice to give somebody is awful. It's because it's like you didn't turn out okay. And really, does everybody just want to be okay?
But it's sort of a cognitive bias, right? They're justifying their behavior. They're justifying their life because it's an excruciating thing to do, to look back on your life and realize that you messed up, to realize that you've really, we all have won the lottery getting here, right? It's like a bajillion to one, way harder than actually winning the lottery, getting here to this point to breathe life and to realize that we've taken this lottery winning, we've squandered it. That's a hard thing to accept. That's a hard truth to have about yourself. And it's something that actually I'm afraid of that I think about all the time. I ask myself these questions. Am I squandering this lottery ticket? Am I doing the best possible job that I can as a human being? Because it's of the utmost importance.
Yeah, you're spot on, man. And because you're asking yourself that question, you probably won't squander it. It's the people that would rather, and I say self-medicate. It could be alcohol. It could be drugs. It could be fast food. It could be ice cream. It could be binge watching on streaming, whatever. It could be whatever I call it your Oreo cookie, however you want to self-medicate yourself and distract yourself. It could be sports, politics, whatever that's distracting you from getting to creating a target for your life and going for it and actually doing the work. Any of those things, you are squandering, the lottery ticket, like you said, and especially people in the developed world. If you're in a developed country, you won the lottery. You were born in a developed country. That's why when you see people that immigrate, they come in, they're killing it. They're getting businesses to come into the U.S. They've got 2 and 3 hotels or gas, whatever. They're killing it. And we're like, because they work and they know that this is the lottery ticket getting here. And we have been born into it, squander it. There's no question.
It's sad to me because I have this awareness of myself. I see it in other people, and I see when people aren't realizing their full potential. And it makes me sad, actually. There's some things in life that can make me unhappy, and seeing these things over and over, they affect me. They make me question, why can't you just turn it around,
Well, and listen, when I was younger, I would be the same thing, and I would try to help everybody. Right? Because you are sad and you're like, but you could do so great. And even when I was starting out my coaching career, I would coach people knowing what the upside was. I could see how their great potential and everything, but then they would fail. And it's because you can't help somebody that doesn't want to help themselves. You can't give somebody a target, or you can't give them drive. They have to want it for themselves. Right? So in fact, for somebody to work with me, I set up so many roadblocks. I make it so difficult to work one-on-one with me that if you say no at any point, then it's good. But if you make it through every one of those roadblocks, you will be 100% successful.
There's a lot to be said for that, to creating these filters to filter out the people that, it's your time, right? It's your time, your energy, it's your purpose on the planet to help these people. And if they don't have the right mindset, if they don't want it, then you're just wasting your time. What's the point?
Right. And I don't have much. So I use in my corporate thing, I call it the death clock, right? So corporate training, I pull out the CDC numbers of the average lifespan in this country for men and women. So a guy my age, I literally have less than 9,000 days. Now I want to play with house money. I want to beat the house. I want to live longer than that. But, no one really knows, right? We don't. So I'm just looking at that number and go, I got less than 9,000 days. Every day when I wake up, there's another one that ticks off. Now I'm down to like 8,758. I can't waste one of those days on somebody that just wants to suck the life out of you, and really they don't really want help. They want assuagement, and I'll assuage you. Hey, I love you, man. That's awesome. I'm not going to make you feel bad about yourself, but I'm also not going to invest any one of my 8,700 days into trying to help your remaining days being better if you're not on board with that. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And there's an awesome blog post at waitbutwhy.com that Tim Urban wrote that's about it has the squares, a square for each week that we're going to be alive, and you can visually see it, and it's not that many squares.
Nope.
And super powerful. Yeah, things like spending time with your family, spending time with your parents, right? Because you move away from the parents. We've already spent like 96% of the time that we're going to spend with our parents. So with that knowledge in mind with that perspective. How much more important does Thanksgiving dinner feel? How much more important is Christmas? How much more important are these holidays where you get together and spend time with your family? Of course, there's squabbles and there's all these annoying things like, mom is worried about everything and driving me nuts. Dad. But like, these are the last 4% of the time that you get to spend with your family.
Why would we waste it over something that's not relevant? That's what I call in the book a sand trap, right? Anything that's not relevant. Why would we waste our time squabbling on something that is meaningless? Like literally in 10 years, is this going to mean anything? In 20 years, in 100 years, it's just not.
And so, the time too, the time spent with friends, the time that I'm spending with you right now in the present, right?
I can never get it back, Brad.
And I can't either.
And you can't either. So that's why I don't want to waste your time and I don't want my time wasted, right? So when we do that's the greatest gift you can give anybody is your attention, because you can always get more money, but you can't get more time to give your attention to something. Again, back to the 24 hours. How am I going to spend it? How am I going to use it? How am I going to waste it?
Distractions, eliminating distractions. Because the thing is, from a cognitive sense, people are very good at hijacking our attention. The world, Google, Facebook, all of these platforms, they make billions of dollars by hijacking our attention, by getting us to spend more attention on them. What actionable steps do you use in your own life to prevent that from happening?
First off, when I realized that I only had like 9,000 days left, right, or 10,000 days left, I was like, I better log this and see how I'm spending my time. So I would literally write down, handwrite, not type it in, because there's something about handwriting, that you would handwrite the log. If I took 2 minutes to eat Oreo cookies, I would write down, eat Oreo cookies from 7:28 to 7:30 p.m., right? So I'm going to write everything down. Now, what that does is make me aware of how much time I'm wasting and where I'm spending it. And then it also makes me realize, if I have to write this down, do I really want to do this activity? Like, if I have to write down, I spend an hour and a half on, a social media platform. Like, do I really want to write that? I'd be ashamed to write or binge watch 9,000 shows. I spent 9 hours, or even on a video game or any of those things. And then I ask myself, through every one of those activities, is this helping me or hurting me advance my purpose?
Anybody listening out there, let's get a little more hardcore about it and say, would you be comfortable sharing this information on Facebook when you write it down? Would you?
Make it public.
Yeah, make it public. Create some social accountability, because that to me is a massive driver for behavioral change.
Oh, absolutely. No, and you're right. Making it public is huge. See, that's really what my job is. When you said earlier about accountability, what if somebody's not accountable? Well, we're not. Humans aren't. If we can get away with it, we won't. That's why people hire me, right? They don't hire me to coddle them. Like that's why coaching is different than therapy, right? I'm going to tell you, rub some dirt on it. How do we fix this going forward? Let's make the course correction. I don't want to hear about, going backwards. We're going forwards, right? And I'm going to hold your feet to the fire. And you can fire me at any time. If you don't want to be me to hold you accountable, then don't hire me, man. I'm cool with that.
Self-discipline is not a great driver of behavior. Having somebody like you is a great driver of behavior because of that built-in accountability. I mean, tomorrow, wake up at 6 a.m., go to the gym. Tell yourself you're going to do it. Try to hold yourself accountable. Most people are not. 99.9% of people are not going to do it, especially if it's not a regular practice, right?
Right.
Now call your best friend and tell them, hey, let's wake up 6 a.m., go to the gym, meet there. And they say, yeah, I'm going to be there. I'm going to wake up early. I'm going to go to sleep early. I'm going to be there for you. Now the odds that you wake up and you get to the gym for your friend dramatically changed. It's
absolutely
dramatic difference.
That's why we don't look for, that's what I talk about, burning the boats, right? So I'm not going to give myself, even on that schedule, on that little example right there, I'm not going to give myself the wiggle room to not be there at 6. I got to say, you know what? I gave my word to my friend and I'm not going to let them down. No back door.
So when you catch yourself saying these things like, I'll try or I should, is it beneficial to ask yourself, well, what could I do to turn this try into I will or I'm going to?
I am. So what I want to say is, see, try or I'm working on anything that's in the future tense. If you're saying something in the future tense, you're giving yourself a back door. So I like to talk to myself, and when I give my word, I tell you in the present or the past tense. Not I'm going to be there. I am at the gym. See, I am at the gym at 6 a.m. in the morning. I am at the gym. Not I'll be at the gym. Not I'll try to be at the gym. Not I'll attempt to be there. I am at the gym at 6 a.m.
I love writing it down, by the way, the handwriting it down.
Got to do it.
Because I'm a habitual goal setter. I write down all the things that I'm going to do every single day. And for a little while, maybe a few weeks, I decided to get fancy with it. I'm like, I'm going to download an app. I'm going to type it in. Nowhere near as effective as handwriting it down. There's something reinforcing about putting pen to paper.
Right. And the neuroscience behind that, we take in 11 million bits of information per second. Only 126 bits go to our conscious mind for action. So we're discarding 99.9% of the information we take in. So what I'm doing when I handwrite, because that information comes through what we see, what we hear, what we touch, and what we taste. When I handwrite, I'm activating more senses. I'm seeing it, and my body is involved in priming those 126 bits. When you're typing it in, it just isn't as connected.
You're engaging yourself in a much
I'm going to get my body
way.
on board with, absolutely. I'm giving myself the best chance to accomplish and so I have all my clients handwrite their stuff. If they don't, and they text a picture of it, like they'll take a picture of their handwritten log. If you're sending it to me in an app, I won't coach you.
I love that.
I know. I know people complain. I'm like, listen, it's mental toughness, not massage therapy, man.
Well, you want to do the things that matter. I mean, this is not a big difference, right? Writing things it is a big difference, but it's not a big difference in energy expenditure.
No, it's not.
So it's something that makes a big difference, not a big difference in energy expenditure.
Right. The return on investment is huge.
Right. And if somebody's not willing to do such a minor thing, then why are they willing to do a major thing?
They won't. See, this is what I'm talking about, all these little roadblocks I put up. Because if you make every one of those hurdles, what it is you're actually practicing the skill of mental toughness. Even at that, making yourself write instead of type is really, you're practicing a skill. Listen, a couple weeks ago, my wife and I were laying out at the pool right before summer ended. And I said, listen, I'm lay on my front, for 30 minutes. Then I'm going to flip over to my back for 30 minutes. At 28 minutes, she's like, is it time to go? I'm like, no, I got 2 more minutes. She goes, you're a nut. I'm like, yeah, but even here, if I practice these 2 minutes of making myself do it here, then I'll practice it. That's my habit, that we always do what we have to do when it's time to do it. No back door. In
my interview with Matt Javid, he said the way we do one thing is the way we do everything.
Yeah.
That was,
right on, man.
So let's move to the lightning round here. So let's get into you specifically. What is your typical morning routine look like? What are the specific actions you take on a daily basis?
Well, the second that my feet hit the deck in the morning, I begin to tell my body and my emotions who's in charge, which is my mind. And I have this little ritual. I say it takes me 2 minutes. I'm not going to tell you, I'm not going to say it on the air, but I have a scripted out thing of self-talk. Every morning, it doesn't matter where I am on the planet. As soon as my feet hit the deck, I'm saying it. I'm muttering it. And I go through it. It takes me probably 2.5 minutes to get through the whole thing. But I talk to my body. I talk to my mind. I talk to my emotions. And I set the target for the day that, we're going to be, tolerant of others. We're going to be kind, and we're not going to waste our time. We're not going to be dominated by, eating Oreos and things like that.
Is it scripted? Does it ever change?
It is scripted. It never changes. I've been saying it since 1998 is when I first started saying it. And it does not change. And every morning, that's the first thing, no matter where I am on the planet, whether I was deployed, whether I'm here at the house, whether I'm traveling, doing a keynote, a hotel, whatever, it doesn't matter where I am. As soon as my feet hit the deck, I've trained myself. That's the first thing that's coming out of my mouth. And I set the stage for that day.
What are some of the major benefits that you see in your life by doing that? You've been doing it for 20 years now, right? So obviously you may be, you have to be, it's a small thing that gives outsized results. So if people were to go about doing that practice in their own life, what are the major benefits to them?
Well, what it does is it sets your day up so that so for me, it's my mind is running the boardroom, right? I don't want my emotions to control me. I don't want my body to control me. So when I was the fat kid, I was controlled by my body and my emotions, doing what I feel like doing. So what I'm going to do is prime those 11 million bits to the 126 and put in my conscious mind how I'm going to operate today, which is I'm going to be a critical thinker that utilizes emotional intelligence. Like I care how I treat other people. I care how they feel. Like we're talking about validation. I'm going to go fulfill their number one need of acceptance, pull rejection off the table. But also while I'm doing that, I'm going to hit my specific targets, for me, which is to not be dominated by my body or my emotions. I'm not going to be an emotional reactor. I'm going to be a first responder, right? So, and you could craft it however you want. Now, when I coach people, I do help them write out this, statement. But my first thing, the first program you should have running is called your identity statement, or I call it the identity statement. It's a short statement that says who you are, no matter what role you play. For me, I'm a man of excellence who always keeps his word, right? So that's the first thing that comes out of my mouth in the morning. I'm a man of excellence who always keeps his word.
The first agreement, be impeccable with your word.
Yeah.
Like you're talking about our awareness and the amount of information that consciously we actually perceive is not that much compared to how much information we're intaking. And actionably, you see it all the time in a situation happens where like two people have completely different perceptions, and those perceptions are dictated by how they view life, by by their mental constructs, their mind map of that situation, and programming your mental mapping of situations beforehand, because it's a fight, right? You've been doing this every day for 20 years, right?
Every day.
Do you stop doing it for a day? Do you stop doing it for a week?
No, there's no day that I ever stop doing it.
Because it's a conscious battle, and it's important to stay on top of it. And if you let it go, that's when some cracks start appearing, and that's when you stop being your best self, right?
Absolutely. So I was at that, if you don't use it, you lose it. And now it's a habit. So because human beings are creatures of habit. I want to be on autopilot of saying I'm a man of excellence who always keeps his word. I want to be on autopilot as a critical thinker. I don't want to always have to think about being a critical thinker. I just want to automatically think like a critical thinker. Right. I don't want to have to think about what are those mental toughness tools. I just want to by habit. It's almost like driving the car, right? When you first started driving the car, everything was herky-jerky. And now you'll make hundreds of life and death decisions and not even think about it. Right. You know what I mean? Like that's how I want to be with mental toughness and critical thinking. That's why I do what I do every day for the last 20 years. And it really is. I mean, I look at my kids now, and even my little girl, she's 14. She's a freshman in high school, and it's just foreign to her that people wouldn't do the work and do the grind and have a routine. It just doesn't even, she's like, I don't know how you cannot like, what are you doing? Like she doesn't even get it because she's never known anything other than being a grinder, having targets, and going to work to hit them. Another
fruit of the success of parenting, right?
It's just so fun to watch, man. It's so satisfying. I got to tell you, I'm just like, my heart is full when I see these kids actually adopt when I'm not looking. Like I like to see it when they don't know that I'm looking. You know what I mean? Like they don't know I'm even there. And I'm like, that's so awesome. That's
proof that the things that you're doing, the things you're implementing, the things you're modeling for them is making a positive impact on the people that they are throughout the rest of their life.
So much fun.
What does a typical evening routine look like for you?
Evening is like, I go to bed every night at 10 o'clock, 2200 hours for you military-minded people, and I read for an hour. Right. So, and I go through probably 60 books a year that I'm an avid reader. So, and I'm reading like, my wife always, she's like reading textbooks at night. I'm like reading medical journals. I'm reading stuff on anything of the latest. I'm reading. So I'm going to read for an hour, and then the lights are out at 11 o'clock every night, regardless of where I am. Right. So now listen, when I'm in California, if I can, I try to stay on East Coast time. Like if I'm on Central time, it's easy. I stay on Central, I'll stay on East Coast time. I try to keep my body regulated on whatever time I'm on, if I possibly can. And that's the routine. I read for an hour. Now imagine this. If you read for an hour in your field of study, whatever your profession is, and you were uploading information an hour every day, where would you be in 5 years?
Way farther than you are now.
Yeah. I mean, it's like I'm a sponge. I can't get enough. And then it just squeezes out. Like I'm not using any notes or anything. I'm spitting out stuff to you because it's in there. Like I couldn't tell you about the 11 million bits to the 126 unless I did the research on it. You know what I mean? So
Exactly.
That's what I do every night. I'm reading every night before I go to bed.
Any specific reason why you read before bed?
Okay, so what I want to do is prime my my conscious mind and my non-conscious mind to be thinking about what I wanted to think about over the course of my sleep. I don't want to be thinking about how am I going to make the car payment. I don't want to be thinking about all the stuff I got to do tomorrow and laying awake at night worrying about stuff. So all I'm going to do is prime the pump of my mind and put it in the direction that I want it to, so that it helps me have a good night's sleep and helps me hit my targets instead of making me worry and be anxious. So I'm not reading any news stories at night about the impending zombie apocalypse. Like, I'm not reading that. And I'm not watching shows that get me all spun up and emotional, or I'm not getting, I'm not watching horror flicks, right? I'm always priming my mind so it helps me get a good night's sleep instead of hurts me.
And the reason that about the unconscious mind learning and working, the diffuse mode of the brain, is by learning, right?
Right.
There's the focused and diffuse mode. And even though we're not aware of it, a lot of times when we ask ourselves a question, right? This is how we have these epiphanies. We ask ourselves a question, we go away from it. We don't even think about it.
No.
And then all of a sudden the answer pops in our head and we're like, oh wow, I didn't really think of it. Well, that's not coincidence. That's simply how the brain works.
Right.
And by uploading all that information right before you go to bed, your unconscious mind is working through that while you sleep. So it's doing
100%.
Doing efficient double duty. I love that. So what's a current large goal that you're working towards right now?
I want to get the book to sell 3.5 million copies.
Oh, that's a lot.
I know people they're like, yeah, you're nuts, but no, because it really, every parent, and even if you have adult kids, like I told my wife, the two adult boys, I'm like, the stress doesn't stop when they become adults. It actually increases because I don't have as much influence. Like you said, 96% of my time with them is over. So for me to help them now, I have to use every trick in the book. So even if you're like, well, my kids are raising out of the house, you need the book. I mean, it literally will help your relationship even all the way through with grandkids, with your adult children. And my Lord, if you have little ones, you got to get the book.
And how much more precious is the time that we spend with our children when we have the knowledge that we have 4% left, right? It should become a much more precious commodity than this false assumption that, we got plenty of time. We got many years to go. But the reality is that face-to-face time that you have with your family is not going to be that much.
No, I'm with you, man. I enjoy every second that I get to be with them. And I have since I really kind of had an awareness of that when they first came out of the birth canal, that I had a very short window to influence them full time. Like now we'll be lucky if once a year all the kids and my wife and I are together in the house at the same time. Like we celebrate that whenever it happens, Christmas or Thanksgiving. We're like, yeah, this is so awesome. We're all we're under the roof tonight together. How great is that? We celebrate that.
I love that you had awareness right from the very start that years go by much faster than we like to think they do.
Yeah.
I can't believe it's coming up on Halloween in 2018, right?
Dude,
it's just gone by crazy? So fast.
I say the days go by slow. So a lot of times you'll feel like the day goes by slow, but the years go by wicked fast.
Right. Yeah. Why 3.5 million copies? I'm curious, by the way, by that specific number.
I just wanted to give myself a specific target. So I thought 15 million would be too high. You know what I mean? But 3.5 million, I think, gives it enough, to where it becomes enough viral where people start handing the book out to each other. Like, hey, you know how we borrow books? I don't know if you have friends, but I have friends that we borrow books from each other because we buy so many, but we also borrow, hey, I'm reading a good book. Can I borrow it when you're done? And then let that message go viral. Because I seriously, this is not even, I can't overstate that the stuff in this book, even there's 7 secrets, but even if you just grab the hold of 1 or 2, it'll exponentially increase. I call it your batting average. Like Babe Ruth, his batting average was 342. And he's a world-class Hall of Famer. We're talking about him 100 years later. It's not going to make you a perfect parent, but it will increase your batting average, and you could become a Hall of Famer, even if you just grabbed a hold of 1 or 2 of the secrets.
I love it, man. Changing people's lives. That's what it's about, right? It's not actually about selling the books. It's changing 3.5 million people's lives, improving their relationships with their
I wanted
children.
to get it in 3.5 million homes, which I figure would be about 7 million homes. And that gives us a pretty good baseline of, doing the job, I think.
I think it's a great start towards raising the next generation of mentally tough kids who are proactive and not reactive.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. 100%.
Speaking of books, it's like you read my mind. Are there any books that you reread every few years? And
I do,
so,
man. Chris DeVos is an FBI hostage negotiator, retired. And his book, Never Split the Difference, I read that over and over and over again. And one of the lines in his book is like, this is why people compromise, right? Is like, it's a husband and a wife, and he wants to wear brown shoes, and she wants him to wear black shoes. So they split the difference, and he wears one brown and one black. It's like, so when you split the difference with somebody, it's like the worst possible outcome.
For both people,
and I love that concept, right? Because most of the time we're trying to compromise, and it ends up being the worst possible outcome when we can't work through something and figure out, what the best option is. We end up taking the worst option.
How do we go about working through the compromise and finding the best solution in a situation that, I mean, the example given is, it's a silly situation, right?
Yeah.
But there's much stickier situations that are tougher to wade through.
Yeah, no, there is. I mean, and it starts with that validation that you were talking about earlier in the show. Like, I'm not going to dismiss. I'm not saying you're wrong that I should wear black shoes. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm not saying I disagree with the black shoes choice. However, I would prefer the brown shoe. Is there a way we could get to brown? And if not, then I'm not going to wear one of each. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to have to be willing to bend too. And is this a fight? And this happens with kids too, right? I'm not going to fight over, did you eat your gummy vitamins this morning on the way out to school and ruin your whole day?
Right.
I'm going to find another way to, hey, let's get a different vitamin then instead of shoving these ones down your throat that the kids hate. You know what I mean? And
it happens with kids all the time because you have good intentions, right? You want to solve the problem instead of validating their fears, validating why they're being emotional, why they're crying, why they're upset. We say, stop crying, right?
Yeah.
What is that?
That's ridiculous. Right. We have a whole chapter on that called motivational intelligence. So how do I use those emotions to help the kids approach instead of avoid? And approach things that help my growth and development instead of avoiding my growth and development. And that's what happens to adults. Most of us avoid. That's just the numbers are. Most people avoid things that would help them learn and grow.
Of course, because it equals change, and change is uncertain, and change makes us feel uncomfortable. Even if it's positive change, it still makes us feel uncomfortable because we have an ego and we like ourselves the way that we are. People, our friends accept us, our spouse accepts us.
And we're creatures of habit, right? So the whole thing of habit is comfort. Anything out of our comfort zone is the opposite of being a creature of habit.
Exactly. Besides the book that you're releasing, what's a project that you're currently working on that's near and dear to your heart? It could be, serving community or something along those lines.
Yeah, man, this is really personal. But there's a group of guys here in my community that are what I call elite warriors. And we're finally, I call them my mighty men of valor, right? Because we're actually going to do stuff. We have big targets of what we can do together, and we're finally coming together. And so every time that I'm in their presence, I can't wait to be in their presence because it's iron sharpening iron, shoulder to shoulder, like the 300 Spartans, getting in the phalanx together. And we actually have, long range targets. I don't want to get into this on the show, but I have a 300-year plan. Like my plan actually goes out 300 years, right? And my kids' plans are like 150 years. And so putting together these multi-generational plans, that's what's near and dear to my heart, to see something that's multi-generational, that'll be a legacy, that'll be lasting well after I'm gone.
Did you put this group together yourself?
No, we just kind of fell together. They heard some of my stuff through another friend and say, "Hey, listen to this guy." And then it's we started meeting. We met for coffee one time, then two times, and three. And now it's like it's really cool, the buy-in and the camaraderie. And I got to tell you, man, there's just something about knowing someone has your back and someone shoulder to shoulder with you, and you're pulling in the same direction.
Yeah, we want community as human beings. We're social creatures.
Yep.
I love that, by the way, the organic growth and the way that it came together. That's super awesome to me. And
it's amazing, man.
300 years out. Let's ask a question about that. I can't just let that go past me. What does a 300-year goal look like?
Well, I will tell you, it'll look like this. Okay. So I ask this question when people ask me that. How is it that Paris Hilton can do what she does?
She's a promoter, gets attention.
She's a jet setter, right? She lives a great life. How is that possible? Because her great-great-grandfather had a 300-year plan. Anderson Cooper of CNN fame, he's a Vanderbilt. He don't need the job. He does it because he loves it. He's bulletproof with them. They can't, if they fired him, he doesn't care, except that he loves his job. Why? Because his great-great-great-grandfather had a 300-year plan. So I don't want my kids having to do, I'm still schlepping around because my great-grandparents and my grandparents and my parents had no plan. They're just trying to make it. I don't want my kids or my grandkids or my great-grandkids to have that problem. I want them to have the other problem where people are saying bad things about them because they're jet-setting around.
I love that. I don't know why, I think this is an awesome way to think and super long-term goals that benefit not just the people that you love now, but the people that you love in the future. Maybe people that you love in the future that you never even meet. That to me, that's incredible.
Right. Now think about this, Brett. So how could I get stressed out? If I'm looking at my 300-year plan, all right, I'm looking 300 years. If I have a bad day, does it matter?
Absolutely not.
No, if I have a bad year, does it? I could have a bad decade, and according to the 300-year plan, so what? See, this is why people are stressed out, because they're like on a hamster wheel, going faster and faster and faster, and then when they step off of it, they haven't moved forward any, and that's why you're stressed out.
Right.
So when I have so all my kids, remember I told you, well, I'm okay. I turned out okay. No, you didn't. And why would your kid go to college without having a plan? My kids all have, they first off, their 300-year plan, or they match into mine, but they didn't have to. They found a way to make it work, like Ken Griffey Jr.
They opted in.
Yeah. But they have their own plans that go out well beyond, 70, 80 years past their own lifespan. And that's what I would encourage every parent to do and we have a section on that in the book called the Emerald City, right? What is their Emerald City? What does that look like? Because if you don't have a destination and a purpose, you're going to get stressed out and your life is going to suck. You're just going to be like the feather on Forrest Gump, being blown around with the wind and you don't know where you're going to land. That's not for resilient minded people.
And life is transient. It's a blip. If you zoom out, a 300-year plan is actually nothing.
No, it's just no, it's nothing. It really is nothing.
Right. So what's a day? What's a week? These setbacks that we think are like so detrimental to us as human beings are like, they're less than nothing.
Right. It's ridiculous. Why am I getting spun up over this?
Right. But we get emotionally attached.
The emotion, and then the emotions are taking over the boardroom, not my mind.
Exactly. And I see this as a poker player, right? One of the things that I've been trained to do is not to become attached to the result of any situation. You look at the process, the decision making behind the situation, and whatever happens. There's some variance in life.
Yeah, you can't control that.
There's some breaks that, you may need for something to be successful. If you take enough shots, eventually you do get the breaks. But I see it in football all the time where a coach will call a play and it doesn't work out. And then everybody crushes him and then he starts folding and you can kind of see it when you watch your teams. You see that he gets more conservative and more conservative in these situations because the outside forces are crushing him because of bad results. And the best example of mental strength from an NFL standpoint is Bill Belichick because you're
talking my language, baby. I love me some Bill Belichick.
I don't even like the Patriots, right? But
I love them. And this is why I love the Patriots because of the process, right? They're not results oriented. Like that game against the Falcons. They did not look at the scoreboard. They just did this play and executed this play. And they stuck with their process and the result. And the Falcons, they were looking at the scoreboard.
And it's so easy in life to be results oriented, to say like, I'm going to do this.
We even like celebrate that. People put it on their resume. I'm not going to hire you if you're not results oriented. That's the worst thing. Someone tells me they're results oriented. I'm like, run. I want somebody who's process oriented. Stop looking at the scoreboard. Do the thing that gets to the score you want and then ignore that. Do the process.
It takes a lot. It takes a lot of resilience in life. Like there was a game. It's probably, I don't even know how long it's been, 4 or 5 years ago, but Belichick was playing the Colts. He went for it on like 4th and 2 at like his own 25-yard line in the fourth quarter to prevent Peyton from getting the ball back. And they didn't make it and he was crushed all week. And do you think that Bill Belichick the next week when he's faced with that, do you think he's going to change his
We're on to Cincinnati
decision? Right. He's going to make the same decision next week, right? And that's what mentally strong people do. Despite the results, despite things going to, hell in a handbasket, they make the same decision because they believe in their process. They believe in their decision-making ability.
And again, they're not perfect, but they're way better over the course of time, just like Babe Ruth.
Right. Get the batting average
341
up.
means he's wrong 2/3 of the time, and yet he's a Hall of Famer. I don't have to even be close to per. I don't even have to get it half right. If I could get it a third right, I'll be a Hall of Famer.
And let's go even further than that. You know, there's foul balls. There's strikes, right? Like, he can swing twice and miss and then get it on the third try.
Right.
1/3 of the time. So it's like, connection is what? Like 1/10? It's not great, but you stick to the process. You do the things that will bring you, because if you do the right things, if you're process oriented, you will reach your goals. You'll do the things that you want to do. It's inevitable. It will happen. You just got to stick to your guns, stick to what you believe.
Plan A and plan B, right? This is what I'm talking about. Burn the boat, stick to your process.
So have you ever strongly believed something in your life only to reverse course later on? And if so, what led to that change?
Yeah, I don't know. And that happens almost, I can tell you it almost happens on a daily basis, because this is the new belief that I set up several years ago, was that all my beliefs are up for review every single day as new information. But see, I'm a learner, right? So I'm reading these textbooks and come in and I get new information. In order for it to be any good, I have to take that new information in, match it up to my current beliefs and say, hey, look, there's new information available. Do I need to upgrade this belief? So all my beliefs are constantly being upgraded, because I think, like, remember when, like, in the 70s, right, it was, butter was not good anymore and we had to get margarine. I don't know if you remember that. I'm a youngster, right? So, butter was not good for you. Now butter is good for you and margarine's bad, right? So every time new information comes, you need to upgrade your beliefs. People like, things are always changing. Yes, because we're learning more. It's called the scientific process. And as we learn more, we need to upgrade our beliefs. And so every belief that I have is up for review. Every single one. I'm not dogmatic about anything except about not being dogmatic.
I love that. And it's amazing, the things that are simple marketing tricks that have tricked us over the years. Diamond rings,
breakfast is the most important meal of the day.
That one, which
who told you that? That's what I always ask when someone tells me my mom. Say, who told you that?
My mom did.
No, and who told her was Kellogg's and anybody else that makes money off of it, right?
Exactly.
I don't know. So you always have to look at the marketing, right? They say follow the money or whatever. Even these scientific studies.
It's hard. They're very deceptive. The marketing is very, very tricky. One of my favorite examples of this is do you remember the McDonald's, that story about the woman spilling the coffee in her lap because of McDonald's, right?
Right.
So it became this point people brought up in conversation about frivolous lawsuits. Oh, woman spilled coffee in her lap in McDonald's. Well, the reality behind that situation is there had been like 100 people spilling coffee on themselves, and McDonald's never changed the temperature. That woman almost died. She had life-threatening injuries, and the financial compensation for the lawsuit was a result of all of these practices that McDonald's had done in the past catching up to them. And the reason that it became this story on frivolous lawsuits is because McDonald's created a marketing campaign to prevent more frivolous lawsuits in the future, right? So like these things that we accept as true, how did they get to us? That was from a marketing, a very,
and that's marketing, that's all marketing does is use those cognitive biases and heuristics to their advantage.
Yeah, they
influence. That's what con men do, right? So this is the same. Yep. So we teach about this in the book, right? That's what a critical thinker does. A critical thinker says, hang on, because what they're playing on is emotions. So I'm going to say, wait a minute, let me verify this, right? So how can we verify that, right? How accurate is that? Where can we verify this accuracy? Where'd this come from? Every scientific journal I read, study, I want to know who funded that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it matters. Because there's
a bias.
There's a bias.
And they're going to share. What was that? Remember that there was like a cable commercial or a satellite TV commercial where they're like, you can make 50% of the statistics say 90, whatever you want 90% of the time.
Yeah.
That's actually true, man. You can manipulate the statistics to say whatever you want.
Because you're getting the statistics from data. And I mean, what was Thank You for Smoking? They had the representatives for the smoking company, their own in-house scientists.
Yeah, absolutely. And there was science behind it, so it must be true.
It took them 50 years to figure out that smoking was bad for you, even though in the 50s there was data that highly suggested it was bad for you. And
right.
even today, people deny global warming. They deny climate change. There's financial incentive to deny these things from a multi-billion-dollar industry. So follow where that data is coming from and see, like, who benefits? Who benefits from climate change is fake, right? Well, the people who are creating the climate change, the oil companies, the car companies. To me, it's unconscionable, but it's the things that corporations do that just, they give me fired up, right? Like, I'm fired up right now. The electric car in California in the 90s, California passed a law where every company that made a car in California had to have an electric option, right? So all the car companies had to have an electric option. Well, a group of people banded together and started protesting this law, and for all of various reasons or whatever, and eventually it got taken away. Come to find out, all the people that banded up to protest the law were hired by the car companies to get the law repealed so that they could stop making electric vehicles because it was costing them a lot of money, right? So these things that change and influence behavior, it's just so important to know what the truth is and where the information is coming from and constantly evaluate that so that you can be on the right side of the fence, you know?
Whatever the right side of the fence is. I would just encourage you to just be a critical thinker. And then I'll never tell anybody what to believe. I just tell you how the belief system is made, right? So how does the human machine make a belief? I'm not going to tell you what to believe or how to believe or whether you're wrong or you're right. It really isn't about that. Like, cause, and again, that's everybody's perception. So what I do is I'll teach you how the machine makes a belief so that you can make a belief how you want to instead of just being spoon-fed a belief from who knows where.
And when evaluating your own belief, it's good that the information you're getting is real, right? Like, everybody should have their own beliefs. Everybody, the truths that they have about themselves, that's their own personal opinion, own personal option.
Right. And then you should vet it.
But I'm not going
whether you take, this set of information or that set of information, if you vetted it and you could tell me why you believe what you believe, then you're good, man.
Yeah, go for it.
I don't care. It doesn't matter whether I agree with it or I disagree with it. As long as you walk through the Socratic method, right? So if you do critical thinking and you come up with a reason, there's an actual logical reason for you to believe what you believe, then right. I know you've done the hard work, right? So every one of my clients, they all believe, they're all from different ends of the spectrum, they have different opinions on everything. And as long as they understand how the machine works, you could build your belief however you want.
Absolutely. But you got to
just be intentional about building the belief and not just being, subtly suckered into whatever the programming out there is.
Getting information that has an agenda, and using that to create your beliefs. I think it does a lot of harm in the world. So if you could share one truth with the world, what would that truth be?
I only get one.
Hey, share as many as you want.
Figure out who you are internally, not the role you play. So pick your own truth of who you are, who you want to be, who do you aspire to, and take internal strengths and qualities and make that your identity. It really will change everything. So instead of saying, I'm a police officer, I'm a mom, I'm a Navy SEAL, I'm a, poker player, I'm an exec, I'm a, a coach. Say, I'm a man of excellence who always keeps his word, or I'm a woman of integrity who maintains balance in an effective life. Just create that internal identity and not just slap a label on yourself. Slapping an external label is definitely easier, but when that goes away, then who are you?
Right. You lose your identity.
So that would be my one thing that if I could share, that would be it right there.
Love it, man. Finally, let's wrap this guy up. And where can my audience find you on the interwebs?
Yeah, getwarriortough.com is our main site. You can get me on Twitter at @warriortoughphd. I'm on Facebook. I think it's @warriortoughphd, and Instagram too, and LinkedIn.
Awesome. I'll put everything in the show notes and also a link to your book so that we can spread the word. Thanks, that out there. My pleasure, man. Have a great day. Man. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your life to talk with me.
Yeah, man. Thank you.
Next time on the Process Podcast, I have with me author, professor, the very wise and amazing Ernest Svensson.
what's interesting about vulnerability and the transparency that goes with it, because that's also an important aspect of making yourself visible in your weakness or whatever it is that it can feel so dangerous and vulnerable, in the sense hurtable, but it truly is the most invincible or safe space to be in. Because when you are hiding nothing, you don't have anything to defend, basically. It's like a very defenseless state, but that defenselessness is the strongest position of any. It's like Lao Tzu says that, whether you're moving up the ladder or down the ladder, your position is shaky. The only safe place is by standing on the ground.
Be sure to click that subscribe button or visit mentallyinvincible.com and join my email newsletter, because this is a conversation you don't want to miss.